Let's fix that up. Strike while the iron's hot.
My computer's taking a dump. Okay, I think that I may not need to be able to play this on stream. Oops. I'm gonna do it. Okay, yeah, yikes. So I was originally planning to kind of walk through some Enshrouded. Computer's really not having it. Not the running the stream and just trying to play at the same time. So instead, we'll just talk about it. That's really unfortunate, but man, I'd really like to show. I really like to show off the stuff that I'm talking about. Oh, it sucks. It sucks so much. Okay, well, we'll do it this way. So I played Enshrouded for, I think, only like 16 hours. That is not enough time to experience whatever endgame there is. That is, however, plenty of time to understand the game's core game loop and for the game to tell me what it's all about. That being said, when it comes to determining whether or not a game is a good game or a game is worth your time, worth the value, I think that that's really difficult to quantify. It's going to vary wildly from person to person. So how we are going to approach this as a design breakdown of Enshrouded is that we're going to talk about some of the expectations that led up to this game. Talk about the goals of the game itself, conveyed by the game itself. And then we'll talk about what it does well and what it does poorly. And then at the end of it, you can tell me what you think about the game. And then maybe we'll try to jump back in after that and, I don't know, reduce some of the streaming stuff so that we can actually play the game on stream. But maybe not. Okay. But for those of you who don't know, Enshrouded is a survival open world, not procedurally generated, but it is voxel based. Takes in very obvious inspiration from the Zelda series in the style of gameplay, and some of the mechanics are just bit one for one from that. Let's see. And then I would like to say that some inspirations are pulled from previous survival games, but I'm not sure that that's the case. And I say that in a bad way, as if very little was learned for the past however many tens of years at this point that survival games have existed. I'll say loose inspiration from, let's say, from maybe Ark, and maybe, very, very much maybe, Valheim. Let's say almost. I'll say, I don't even want to mention Valheim in the same sentence, if I'm honest. So we'll talk about Ark as well. So far as the expectations for Enshrouded were concerned, because of its timing and potential, it was very much meant to be the new Valheim. Or can this game replace Valheim? I think that, so I like Force Gaming as a creator. I know that a lot of people like this game. I think that the last thing that Enshrouded themselves advertised was that 1 million people played it, which is awesome, good for them. And at the same time, you're only getting so little of the story. And I want to talk about whether or not this, so if your expectations for like, oh, this is going to replace Valheim, you're sorely disappointed. You will be sorely disappointed. It's more like, if you really enjoy Zelda and also like survival games, then this is probably something that, actually, so like packaging Zelda into a survival game is probably more along the lines of what this game actually achieves. So the timing of this game, it is, I think, one of the reasons that it's viewed with so much interest is that Valheim has slowed down. This is one of the biggest drawbacks of Valheim itself, is just that their development is really, really, really slow, which is a little bit unfortunate. I'm sure they're dealing with a lot of challenges, probably on the technical side, because the game, I think, kind of outgrew some of its ambition. But one of the benefits of Valheim, just for comparison, is that it's procedural. So, randomly generated worlds. Big hook. The exploration is organic. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a little bit. And then the pacing is isn't forced. Actually, the pacing is challenge based, and I'll get into that too. And then you have like smaller elements to where it's incredibly atmospheric, and it has really strong themes, like a strong identity, being I guess not even Viking, like Norse mythology in concept, and then it has purposeful building. Purposeful in that you're intended to design everything is very purposeful in Valheim, which you'll see a lot of difference between Enshrouded and Valheim in that respect here. So, the potential, just getting back to expectations, when Enshrouded was announced, people were like, oh, yeah, is this the next Valheim? Was the hook, because Valheim is very popular, obviously, and because of the timing, because of the slowdown of the development cycle. People are really looking for something to scratch that itch. But there's a number of survival games that are on the way. We're still waiting for Nightingale, which has potential. Pal World just released, which is a survival game that it's interesting in that it kind of operates on some of the same principles of Enshrouded's hook, I guess. Not from the gameplay perspective, but from the fact that it takes ideas from a different game and then packages them differently. And then, so for example, Pal World is it's Pokemon, but it's packaged as a survival game. Enshrouded is Zelda, but it's packaged as a survival game. And those things are, I think it's not necessarily a bad way to develop games. It scratches an itch that people have. People will want like a Pokemon that's a survival game, and we'll never get it because, well, outside of like Pal World, but because of just how tightly that IP is held on to. So, I mean, something like Pal World might change that, but we'll see. So the potential would just scratch the same itch as Valheim. So those are sort of the expectations going into it. And then here's Valheim as a breakdown. Let's talk about the goals of Enshrouded. What it actually was able to accomplish. When you jump into the game, you start as a Flameborn, which is, well, that's your whole purpose for character. You are going through the world trying to cleanse it of the Shroud. And the Shroud is it is like, I don't want to call it like an infection, but basically, and all this is kind of lore dumped during the opening cutscene, but the people of the world, Embervale, I think, Ember something, delved deep into the world, created these wells to draw elixir from. And elixir had this sort of power that would give you power, or it would give you strength, but it would corrupt you at the same time. And then humans were fighting over it and eventually led to the downfall of their civilization. Cool premise. I dig it. So now you are as Flameborn, which was like their backup plan for like if things go really poorly, we need some way to come back from the brink. And then you as Flameborn wake up and you are now going through the world kind of relighting these fires, these flame sanctums, and I guess bringing people back. Throughout the game, you'll find a lot of abandoned towns and villages, and it tries to incentivize exploration. I think this is one of those things that it does well, but it's very forced. You can tell right from the start that this is also a very combat-focused game. By just going into it, you can tell that the game is about progression, which I guess we'll talk about that kind of in depth too. And then one of the goals is, what's funny is I don't even think this isn't actually a survival game. The more that I think about it, it's an action game with survival elements, which survival game, but not actually. It's open world, it's voxel based. So I'll just say it's action oriented. So those I think are the main three goals of the game. Story doesn't, like, it's a thing that exists. There's a lot of really cool implicit narrative that's built in, but it's not gonna, if you're there for the story, that's not really something. The same thing with Valheim. If you're there for the story, that's probably not the strongest point of it. However, I would say that it's definitely stronger than Valheim in that respect, but it's also way more forced. So let's break these down a little bit more. So when it comes to exploration, you travel to let's see, complete quests around the world. You can find unexpected pieces of the world that was left behind. Not everything is a quest. Like, you'll just run into a town somewhere and it'll just be a town. That'll have like a little lore memo or something. And you can see like the people who used to live there, and then you'll kind of get a hint to some of the things that cause its particular downfall. Be it just like that there's monsters that invaded the town, or that actually that's the main one that comes up. Just different types of monsters pushing into the town. But regardless of that, it's always nice to come across the town and think, oh, there's a thing over here that I can explore. And whether or not that exploration is rewarded, probably get into. Combat focused game, very much centered on fighting everything. You and the NPCs that you summon are not. They're the only. Actually, the NPCs are probably the only non-combatants, and everything else you just have to kill. And the. Okay. I don't even know what to say about combat. Let's, with exploration, let's talk about traversal, too. well, traversal elements to let you reach new places. So that's something that exists within the progression, but it's also a big part of the exploration is that you use like gliders and little flame shrines just around the world to go visit new places and fast travel back and forth. Combat foot, let's see. There's something you fighting anything. Yeah. So I guess this is kind of where the progression comes in. You unlock new abilities. Just there's a sort of pseudo class progression. Character. You constantly get higher level gear, which is a problem when it comes to pacing. And then you heal frequently into higher level mobs. Which this all gets down to pacing. Which you have to be a higher level to deal with adequately. Alright, let's talk about the things that Enshrouded does well. It's funny, I don't even talk about the building mechanics. That's supposed to be a part of it, but actually, let's go into this. The voxel-based world lets you dig through it. It's also you go almost anywhere you want. And then Shroud pushes you, or Shroud gives you limitations to overcome. And this is cool. Instead of what it does well, I'll get to that later. Interesting ideas. Shroud is a tangible world actor element. Stop motion. Why not? That must be circumvented. It can sometimes be overcome. It creates a limitation to how long you can spend in certain areas, and some mechanics interact with the Shroud. This is probably the game's strongest point, is that it's really, this mechanic, I would like to see it in more games, where there's a limited amount of time that you can spend in a place, so you have to be purposeful in what you're doing and where you're going. This one it's really cool. The other interesting ideas, not really getting that much. Yeah, I think that's the only one that excites me about the game. But I'll say, like, what it does well is when you're playing Enshrouded, I mean, you know, aside from the Shroud, I think I have this overwhelming feeling that it's fine. The game it's a mediocre game with some interesting ideas, but it's just a kitchen sink. It's like some designers took all of the elements of the game, or just like all the cool ideas, and just jammed them into a game and said, people like these things, now they have them all, and that was it. It's like there's very little thought to the actual development of the game, and I think that it falls down most when it comes to pacing. So, let me back up. What it does well is gives you places to explore. I think that traversal is fun because those are just fun mechanics. Honestly, the combat's just very, very rudimentary. It's kind of garbo. I'll say that it feels fine for what it is. I feel like there should be some sort of compromise between what it does well and what it does poorly. But we'll go with what it does poorly, since that's what I'm leaning more toward. Pacing is awful. Building is awfully cumbersome. Actually, everything in this game is really cumbersome to do. It's like they learned hardly any lesson from recent survival games. So when you look at Valheim, the building system in there it's very smart and intentional. Just to break it down, because I'm going to lose my mind over this stuff. Building Enshrouded versus Valheim. So Enshrouded has a very arc / or old school style of building. So when you look at a game like Rust, or when you look at a game like 7 Days to Die, I think 7 Days to Die does this too, I could be wrong now, but you're building items to then stuff into your action bars to then place in the world. That is by far the stupidest mechanic that could have been streamlined out of a game to make it better. There's no good reason for this mechanic to exist, and I think that the people who designed Enshrouded know this, because they then later use it as a point of progression with magic crates that you store building materials in, and then it lets you have a less annoying time. Hi, Henry. It gives you a less... It like reduces the friction to building. So in Enshrouded, just as far as the game loop is concerned, building, to me, not fun. And it's very difficult to do well. Things are very finicky. They don't snap very well. It's like they may have, but it's like they bought a Unreal Engine building system, because I'm pretty sure I've seen this exact one before, but it seems like they bought like a plugin online, threw it into Enshrouded, and said, and now you can build. And didn't really think about the user experience. You can build amazing things in Enshrouded. It just takes you so much longer than it should. It creates a very frustrating experience because of how little, there's like a bunch of buttons to do things that should just be intuitive. So I was building a survival game, and one of the things that I wanted to get right, wanted to get correct, was how streamlined the building process is, or should be. Valheim does it very, very well. There's no game currently that does building as good as Valheim. What's more important is that a game like Valheim has mechanics associated with it so that when you make things, the structures look like structures. They're not just nonsense. That doesn't need to be a goal of Enshrouded, but because of the fact that you can build a building that is no support or like has no foundational support. It can just be a really dumb, nonsensical shape, and that's fine. It's just a building now. That to me is, I mean, if that's what you want your game to be, to unlock creativity for your players, that's probably okay. Another game that I saw do something similar was EverQuest Landmark. However, EverQuest Landmark, very, very, very well done as far as the building system, and a lot of it came down to just how easy it was to interact with that process. Unlocked a lot of creativity, was celebrated throughout the community. You will likely see something similar with the Enshrouded fan base, but the question that I have is, I mean, honestly, you could have just given us a creative mode and just let us run wild. I don't even know why there's why resources are done. And I really wish I could get in game to show you. It's upsetting because that game runs like balls on this particular computer while I'm streaming. Functionally, I can't even do it. Wish I would have known that before I was streaming. But we'll talk about, so Enshrouded, like very old school style building. You're building items to put into the action bars to place in the world. You have to do stuff like you take materials are used to build blocks that you then use for actual building. The reason that it does this, and I can only understand, but I don't think there are better ways to solve this. But the reason that Enshrouded does what they do is because they need. So here's how it works. You'll take you have 2 logs, and then you'll turn that at a workbench into 1,000 log blocks, whatever. And then when you're trying to build, the size of, I would say like the fill size determines how much of the log blocks are used. So if you create like a 1x1, like a little baby square, is equal to 1 log block. So that's 1 out of 1,000. And to their credit, the versatility that this allows is that you can, so it does a couple of things. If you create like I don't actually know the dimensions, let's say like a 4x4, we'll call it meters. Just a block, I guess it'd be a 4x4x4. It's going to use, well, I don't want to do the math, but it will use that volume in log blocks. And then if you were to take another cube and put it halfway interspersed with another one, so if you like move the camera a little bit, it's only going to cost you half the resources. So it's only using the amount of resources that you are actively using to fill a space. It's difficult to explain, but it's easier in game. However, the actual building process, garbage. Unintuitive garbage. So it's that you can do anything, you just kind of have to deal with it. And that is probably fine. if your game isn't about building things. If it's a side feature, and then this is fine. I don't think that this game wants it to be a side feature, but they haven't streamlined it to the point where it's fun to use. And I think that there's a similar thread throughout the entire game of Enshrouded, to where you're able to do so many things, and they give you so many things, but none of those things matter. They're all a sideshow for just you progressing through the world, killing things, leveling up, and that's it. It's an action game. So disappointing. So if you were looking for, so I guess we'll compare it to Valheim. Building that is, yeah, Henry, I agree. So one of the things about Enshrouded is that, so as you're exploring the game, because the game is very much about exploring, you're going to, there's a very large map, a very pretty handcrafted map. It was, I'm like 99.9% sure that this is just done with Voxel plugin, which is also something that I explored, except you can't use RVT, runtime virtual terrain, with Voxel plugin. I think they're working on it, but basically, and because of that, I couldn't. So in the game that I was working on, I had seasons. So it's like when it was fall, the grass would die, and it'd be like a little bit of a different color. When it rained, things would get wet and slick, like you see in Valheim. When it became winter, the ground would cover in snow, and the trees would lose their leaves, and all of that stuff was very important to the goal that I had for the game. And I wanted to use Voxel plugin because I liked how easy things seemed to be. But if I did, I wouldn't be able to have any of that. I wouldn't be able to change the textures in real time. So I think that's probably, I kind of wonder if they ran into a similar issue at some point. Or maybe they always designed this game to be handcrafted, in which case, success. But yeah, definitely using Voxel plugin, it allows you to very easily say like, okay, this is when a character takes this action, we're going to make it have this sort of volume, and then you're going to remove the terrain, and then the plugin just does the rest. So it'll tell you, it'll allow you to excavate certain things. You can mark certain objects for like not being destructible. You could even take objects that you've created and then turn them into voxel-based stuff. So like, I think that's how they're getting around a lot of their whole world being destructible, basically, is that they're using a lot of that tech. Really, really, really smart plugin. I love it. I just wish that it worked for my purposes. So anyway, Valheim doesn't use Voxel plugin. I mean, it's made in Unity, so it couldn't. But they have a I guess I'll just talk about building in Valheim. Everything is streamlined through items, in particular. So Valheim is so funny because I love seeing how many corners they cut to make this game. Seeing what they chose not to do is just as exciting as seeing what they did, because they cut so many corners. Stuff like holding the hammer in their hand. So the hammer, when you wield it, it allows you to then, it says like, okay, they're using a hammer? Yes, they're using a hammer. That means that I can press, whatever button to start crafting things. So, and then once you're in that crafting mode, you can scroll through, click on your different what objects you want to build, and then it just uses the items in your backpack to make the objects you want to make. So it's none of this. You don't have to craft the thing and then put it in your backpack, or actually in your hotbar, to then place in the world. That garbage doesn't exist. And that's one of the most... it's a little bit excessive to call it revolutionary, but I haven't seen another game that does it. And I don't know why that's the case, because everything feels so good when it comes to building. But Valheim is very much about building, because you're trying to habitate the space. You're creating a... Hi, Old Elf. Yeah, I'm mostly complaining about Enshrouded in this particular design breakdown. If you haven't played it, it is a... It's billed as a survival game. It's not. It is an action game with survival elements. If you like Valheim, Enshrouded is a very different experience. So, yeah, man, just... Okay, so, and then building. So, building is purposeful. You have foundation limits. So, when you're building in Valheim, if you're building a wooden structure, the wood needs to be connected to the ground, and then you can only build, like, 3 high or something like that before things start to get really shaky. So but if you're building on stone, you can stack stone up higher and then put wood on top of that, and there's like intermediary stuff like core wood, and there's really excessive stuff that you get way later in the game. And on top of the foundation limits, which is important because you have to like put posts in places to support the structure. So you can't just build walls, you put posts between the walls, which support the structure. The fire creates smoke, and smoke has to go somewhere. Because of that, you have to choose where the fire goes, and actually the fire has to be connected to the ground too, or like on a stone object. And then the smoke plumes up. If there's too much smoke inside, you're inhaling that, deals damage to you. So you create plumes, or smokestacks, At the same time, you have to cover those smokestacks, because if it rains, it's going to put out your fire. So it's all like, what it does is organically makes you build in a way that feels like you're building an actual structure. It feels like you're trying to figure things out. How can I create this structure to look like this, but still provide warmth for the entire space? That sort of stuff. Valheim is very much a game about building. It's a game about a lot of things. It's a game about exploration too. It's a game about overcoming bosses, but also it is an actual survival game. So, if you like Valheim for those reasons, you need to like Enshrouded for other reasons. Alright. Chimney Simulator. I love it. I really do. It feels so good to build in Valheim. I can't speak highly enough. And actually there are mods too, because one of the things that people will be like, one of the tediums in Valheim is that you do have to have the stuff in your inventory, and which means that you need to go to the right boxes, which the put things in boxes game is one of those things that are like, I hate it. But they've also added some things where you can just like hold E and it'll transfer the items in your inventory over into the boxes if there's existing items of the same type. And you can have mods that will be like, okay, your crafting bench can also contain items. So it's like, it's always right there, instead of having to build a separate box and put the little placard on it. There's some mods that make it so like, if you just have, you can just build and it'll know how many logs or whatever you have in a crate somewhere else so that you don't have to grab it and then pull it out. But I like the pure grabbing and having in your inventory, because it doesn't feel tedious enough to make me hate it. At the same time, it gives you kind of like small little things to do instead of like putting all your crap in wherever you want. You try to stay organized, and to me that's kind of the fun part about the game, is that you're collecting a bunch of stuff. You need a place to put the stuff, and because of that, you'll have like you'll put boxes that are for when you're forging things. You put those boxes next to the forge so that you can easily access stuff. It just adds to the intention of building structures that make sense. So I'll stop talking about Valheim's building. But let's see. So one of the other things about Enshrouded that I think this is in the realm of it just being really poorly done is that pacing. Let's talk about this nonsense. So the level, like many RPGs, in that you have a defined level, and then gain skill points to invest into abilities. This part, fine. I think it works. Where it runs into issues is twofold. As you explore the world, because again, this game is meant to incentivize exploration, you will consistently be outpaced. I think you will consistently run into areas that are higher level than you, to the point where it's problematic. So I'm level 9, like just hit level 9, and then there's like an area that we're going to, and everything there is level 15. And then everything there at level 15, they can like two-shot you. Those areas are also not clearly marked. They're just like slightly further away than the level 11 areas that we're at. At the same time, you are constantly given quests to do things that are beyond your level, so you feel compelled to go there. And then not only that, well, okay, let's talk about gear. Your gear is frequently outpaced by virtue of going places. See, that's not a great way to phrase this. Your gear quickly becomes irrelevant as you move to new areas. You are not crafting new gear that, I mean, there's armor sets, but you're not like crafting higher level gear. You're just constantly running into like, oh, okay, there's a level 5 sword. Oh, okay, this level 8 common item is better than the level 4 legendary item that I have. It's like, okay, well, now I just disenchant the other thing. Constantly. You're just like constantly getting new stuff that's better than the old stuff. And if you are in an area that is higher level than you are currently, and you're getting stuff from it, if you say like, oh, okay, well, we need to back off because the enemies are getting really strong. So you go do the other quests. It's like, oh, well, the stuff over here is level 5. I'm not going to get anything from it. I already have all the good stuff from up here. I'm being punished for not evenly distributing this, for like not evenly exploring the area, the entire map rather. Because it kind of like, it's like, it expands outward in a circle. Basically, the further you are from the starting point, the higher level things are. So, but the quests are constantly just given to you. Like, go do this thing, go do this other thing, go do this other thing because you did the thing. There's no organic development of the characters. So the Long Dark. I like The Long Dark because there's no building in it, and it feels more like survival. You can repair your clothes, tools, crafting clothing, but no building stuff, more like foraging, salvaging, trying to survive very cold day and night. You know, I saw a clip from that game, and I was intrigued too, just knowing that, like, yeah, no, the wolves will kill you, you know? Um, that did seem interesting to me because it did feel like almost that you were in a desperate situation, which is, I think, the goal of the game, just based on what I've seen. But this, yeah, definitely not the case. Let's see. Played the demo of it, grade 5. Yeah, I should probably get around to that. I'm not super into the hardcore survival elements, but I'm intrigued by it from a game design perspective, because you have to walk this tightrope of feeling good about what you're doing, feeling like you can overcome adversity, but they need to constantly make your life really hard, or else it doesn't feel earned. I think that's maybe even like the feeling of helplessness is what defines a survival game. Certainly defines a horror game. And a horror game is, I think, like on the other side of it. The wind carries your scent too. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Let's see. Let's talk about pacing and Valheim. So, and again, the reason that we're comparing these two games is twofold. First off, everybody expected this game to be Valheim. It's not. I say everybody, but I'm talking about like the reviews that I would see and the clickbait titles that people would try to throw on their YouTube videos, and the frame that they would talk about it in. So it created this expectation. So, because of the expectation, that's how we're evaluating the game from that perspective, while knowing that this game is very much, it's an action game with survival elements. Okay, so pacing in Valheim is organic because you are learning what you need to overcome when you are ready to move to the next area. Pacing in Enshrouded does not work this way. Pacing in Enshrouded constantly pushes you to new areas with no breaks. There's no time that you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to relax and spend some time building. It's not a thing. Because you're constantly like, go here, go here, go here. The game is already set out for you. And to me, that almost diminishes the exploration element. In Valheim, things are procedural. You'll run into like, oh, it's cool that there is this small village here next to this lake. And in Enshrouded, you'll say, oh, cool, it's nice that there's this small village here that seems to have a lore piece. But aside from that, Enshrouded is very much it's a doing things simulator. Because it's constantly like, do this, do this, do this, do this, go here, give me this, whatever. And that does not excite me. It keeps me busy. And if you're trying to get away from like real life, you're just trying to relax, play a game, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's all you need. You just need distraction. I don't want a distraction. I want to be excited. I want to be immersed. I want to find joy in the time that I spend playing games. And it's because of that I think that's the core of, there's many reasons, but I think that that's really the heart of why I don't like Enshrouded. Why I don't think that it is a good game. It lacks artistry. There was so little intention with the I mean, I could put all this stuff on the back burner and just say that Enshrouded lacks so much cohesion that I can't say that it's a good game, at least from a design perspective. I think that any developer could have made this, and that makes me a little bit sad too, because it doesn't feel like it's something special. It just feels like it's another game in a sea of noise that doesn't actually achieve anything new. Elements of it combined in this way. Maybe I'm not giving credit where credit is due. Repackaging elements from one game, Zelda in this case, throwing it into a survival format, that is new. Newish. The traversal mechanics feel fun. There's a grappling hook. There's a double jump. There's a glider. And those elements are all very useful in gameplay. I find myself frequently wanting to dig holes through mountains to get to the top instead of find a way around them. That is a fun component of this game, thanks to the traversal. But then I don't feel like I'm doing anything in this game. I feel like it's just you're running around, collecting new gear, just kind of going through this treadmill. And what they could have done to make this game so much better is to just slow down. All they had to do was, I would say, even not give you quests. There's enough lore in the world where they could have just let you figure it out. Let you try to go somewhere that you haven't explored. And there's also more functional things too, because you're constantly going places and because you're being sent there, you're trying to create spawn points so that you can fast travel to those locations. You create little shrines. And those shrines, you'll just plop them down. They're meant to be the heart of a base. But why would you do that? You just fast travel back to your main base. So there's no feeling of accomplishment. I don't feel like anything is. I don't feel like my time is rewarded in this game. It is very much just doing things. I think that's the end of it. It's unfortunate I never played Valheim to have as an input, but can I name another game you might be interested in checking out one day? Go for it. Yeah. I played a lot of survival games. Ark, 7 Days to Die, H1Z1 if you count that, forever ago. Actually, what's funny is that H1Z1 was the first survival game that I was like, I love it so much, and I was very much doing my own thing, and this was before it became a battle royale, very much before it became split off and became Just Survive. H1Z1 was I felt like I was constantly, because it's a PvP space, and I didn't play Rust. I skipped out on that. So I was trying to create, a base on a on a bridge. So this is the memory that I have of H1Z1 and why I love it and hate it at the same time. I built this base in the middle of a bridge. It took me a long time to get all the resources, build things up. And I was because again, PvP, I was so paranoid about losing that base that I constantly took 2-hour naps and then I'd wake up, log into the game, patrol it a little bit. And every time I would go out for resources, you hear a Jeep in the distance. You're like, okay, get behind cover. I'm just waiting for it to pass, leave. You don't want to run into anybody, because running into people, it's very easy to die. If you die, you lose everything. So then I'd like get back to the base, build things up, just try to make it bigger. One night, I permitted myself an unfortunate 6 to 8 hours. I don't sleep very well in general, but so I think it was like 6 hours, maybe, of sleep after doing these 2-hour like stints for days. I think I did it for like at least 3 days, probably a week. I woke up after this extended rest. Everything's destroyed. At that point, I was like, yeah, I'm done, actually. I just didn't want to play it anymore. Void. It's not really survival, it's a roguelike and first person. Oh, okay, interesting. Actually, I think I know the game that you're talking about. Is that the one where there's multiple, like you have a crew of people and they need to do different things? Henry says maybe for the better. Maybe for the better. I don't know. It was, I think that it was fun in that time. And it would have been more fun had I had people to play with me. But that being said, I think that it definitely exposed one of the major flaws in that game. H1Z1, that is that when there's no goal as a community, then all it takes is for you to be offline. Like, you're not building towards something together, you're just trying to jack each other up. And actually in H1Z1 in particular, there was an epidemic of people just running around creating bows and then just running around in their underwear because they throw some arrows at you. Maybe they get a kill and get to jack all your stuff. Maybe they don't. It's okay, they just start somewhere else and then run around in their underwear and create a bow again. So there was there's low cost to starting and then jacking up somebody's day, and really high cost to people who were like invested and wanted to hold on to stuff. It's an interesting paradigm, but I don't think that it was. I think that the game was really lacking just a community objective. What it should have been about was the zombies instead of the PvP. It should have been PvE or PvE optional PvP and trying to survive. And that's my take. It's just you're on a prison ship. Every new character you play after death is a prisoner out of cryo with unique characteristics. Oh, it's fun. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I play a lot of, have played a lot of Project Zomboid, and what you're describing there is very similar, except in Project Zomboid, it's an isometric game. You're a survivor in a zombie apocalypse, and everything is awful. You're going to die. They tell you that right at the start. Eventually, you start in this town, and when you die, you turn into a zombie and you walk around. So then you create a new character, and then it lands you in just some random place, and then you have nothing again. And you can come across your zombie body and try to beat them up for your stuff. Eventually, during the zombie apocalypse, the power's going to go out. Eventually, the water's going to go out. So you need to figure out how to survive long enough and then learn enough to create a sustainable little ecosystem. And that is wicked hard to do, because if you just round the corner the wrong way, if you try to be a little bit risky, and then someone takes a bite out of your neck, you're just like, well, this character's going to die. I guess I'll just put my stuff somewhere. It could be really rough. Me and my son actually play that a lot. He really, really likes that game, which I'm proud of him. I know that I'm raising him the right way. Yeah. Guns are great. So, yeah, the guns in Project Zomboid, I think that the shotgun is the only one that I've actually found useful. The others are just, like you said, they're just noisemakers. It's really fun, though. I enjoy it. All right, well, as far as this design review, I think that I've said most of what I wanted to say about Enshrouded. If you if you like Zelda, and also the character models in Enshrouded drive me nuts too. It's just like everything's so stunted, and that's not what the art looks like. It's like I expect to be like a really cool kid. No, you're a child. You're a child running around in this world killing zombies and wolves and whatever else. If you like Zelda and also like open world, I really don't want to call it a survival because it's not, then you may enjoy this doing things simulator. Force Gaming gave it a pretty good recommendation. I don't believe him. Well, I do. I believe that he enjoyed it. I also think that that enjoyment is going to run out the moment that you run out of content. Unlike something like Valheim, where you can spend hundreds of hours in the game and create a new space. That's not there for Enshrouded. I think that hopefully they create some open world content. I think that PvP in Enshrouded would have potential, and I think that's something that they entertain as a thought too. But here's my doggo. He's a little boy. A little boy, this dog. It's like, please stop. Why you set up camera? But I think that's it. That's all I got. Thanks so much for hanging out, humoring me, talking about this this game that I wish I could have refunded, but can't now. And I think that I'll catch y'all later. Later.